Bismillahi awwaluhu wa akhiruh. We begin now this last session of our seminar on Al-Masih al-Dajjal here in the city of Birmingham in Britain. And we thank Allah that so far, alhamdulillah, we've had a very pleasant day without any problems. Other than the fact that I had to gulp down my food quickly. 1 hour passed so quickly. But this session is an exciting session, yeah. And this session is one in which I still have more work to do. I am writing with Allah's kindness and grace, inshallah, 5 books on Dajjal. The first one is already written, Dajjal, the Quran, and Awwal al-Zaman, and we still have some copies left. And that is the most important book for you for attending this seminar. And the second one is Dajjal on Money, which will be an expanded version of this session we've just ended. And I would probably take another few months to finish it, inshallah. The third one is from Jesus, the true Messiah, to Dajjal, the false Messiah. And I finished probably half of that already. So I hope it can be finished before the end of the year. And the fourth one is the one in which I'm going to get into trouble, on Dajjal and the feminist revolution. And the last one will be Dajjal, the Quran, and the end of history. That's difficult because the information we have is so little, and we have to connect lots of dots, and that's not easy. This is that session in which I will share with you what I'm comfortable with so far. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to the angels, in the first page of the book of history, He said to them, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. I'm going to place on earth one who will be Khalifa. What is Khalifa? He spoke to Nabi Dawood alayhi salam, the Prophet David, and he said, Ya Dawood, O David, Inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard. We are hereby appointing you as Khalifa on earth. Okay. So if he is Khalifa, what does that imply? The Quran then goes on to say, فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِالْحَقِّ. So establish rule on earth. Establish government on earth. Establish law on earth based on the truth which has come from Allah, not from CNN. And so, when Nabi Dawood and Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam established the holy state of Israel in Jerusalem, they were in fact establishing a Khilafah state. And then came Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, who also established a Khilafah state in Mecca, in Medina. And so we have 2 Khilafah states established by the prophets of Allah. They differed with each other, but we don't have the time to explain how they differed with each other. But the function of the Messiah was to restore that Khilafah state, which was in Jerusalem, not this Khilafah state, which was in Mecca. And the function of Dajjal, therefore, would be to establish a holy state of Israel. At least he will try to get people to accept it as holy Israel, when in fact it will be an impostor state. And that holy Israel must be the ruling state in the world, as it was in the time of Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. So what will be the events which will precede that state of Israel in Jerusalem becoming the ruling state in the world? So far what we have done is to take you to the shadow, which is in Suratul Mursalat of the Quran, and which the Quran says is a shadow with three parts. Intaliku ila zillin dhi thalasi shu'ab. Proceed to a shadow which will have three parts. And we say that the three parts of that shadow were Dajjal's three stages before he appears in human form. And we identified all three parts of that shadow with that part of Rome or Constantinople which went fishing when they're not supposed to fish. And eventually they were so corrupted by Dajjal that they broke away and they constituted Rome of the West, as distinct from Rome of the East. We took you to Suratul Rum of the Quran, and we pointed out to you that that room in the Quran at the beginning of Suratul Rum was constituted of a people who are now designated as Nasara or Christians, who had already corrupted their belief in the one God. They were already worshipping Jesus and already believed in him as a Son of God, and also already believed in a triune God, the Trinity. All of these had already happened by the time they reached Constantinople. And then we said they established a holy state in Constantinople, and they call it the Holy Byzantine Empire, because that was the name of the city before Constantinople moved there. It was called Byzantium. And then the name of the city was changed from Byzantium to Constantinople after Constantine. And the Quran says, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومِ, that Rome has been defeated. فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ, in a land close by. وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ, but they are going to turn the tables and they will be victorious. فِي بِضْعِ سِنِينَ, in just a few years. And this was something astonishing, because at that time the Byzantine Empire was in peril of collapsing altogether. They were in a very, very, very perilous situation. And for someone to predict or prophesy that in just a few years' time they're going to be victorious, it was impossible. And in fact, it did happen. They were victorious. within just a few years' time. But the Quran then went on to say, Lillahi al-amr, that the authority for granting victory is with Allah. And then went on to say, min qabl wa min ba'd, both before and after. And we said that the word before has no meaning unless it be before something. Nor does the word after have any meaning unless it be after something. So there must be something in between. We say that, yes, the Quran is prophesying two victories for Rome. Two victories for Rome. Rome being a Christian people who don't go fishing on the Sabbath day. What is that which is in between? And we said this is our view, that what is in between the two is the great schism which took place in 1054, where one part of the Christian world went fishing and the other part of the Christian world did not fish. This part came to the Western world and became Western Christianity and eventually abandoned the law, whereas that part still held on to the law. And Allah then favored that part with victory twice. From this part came a people who have so abandoned the law that they now say a man can marry another man and get a marriage certificate. You can't go further than that in the abandonment of the law. This is the part from which modern Western civilization has emerged. These are the people whom Allah cursed in the Quran, and He said, be apes, despise. But amongst these people, you had that alliance between human beings and the jinn that is there in Surah Ar-Rahman. And as a consequence of that alliance, we know from Surah An-Naml, the scientific and technological revolution got help from the jinn. And they were able to establish a military dominance over the rest of the world. And they were able to send their armies and conquer and colonize the rest of the world. And they have been the greatest oppressors that mankind has witnessed. And this oppression has been continuing for the last 300-400 years. But if Rome is to have two victories, and one has already occurred, and the second one is to come after the Great Schism, has the second one come as yet? The Quran went on to say that on both occasions that Rome is victorious, وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, that the Muslims will celebrate that victory of Rome. We have not celebrated any victory of Rome other than that one which occurred in the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And so the second victory of Rome is still to come. We also took you to that moment when Nabi Isa alayhi salam was to be crucified, and he did not know what's going to happen. No. And Allah spoke to him. And we have the record of the conversation in the Quran. It's called Allahu Ya Isa, and Allah said, "O Jesus." And now Jesus, Nabi Isa is listening, and Allah is speaking. Inni mutawaffik, I'm going to take your soul. Wa rafi'uka ilayya, I'm going to raise you unto myself. There's more to explain in this, but I don't have the time to do it. وَمُطَهِّرُكَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and I'm going to cleanse you and purify you of all the nasty things it's been said about you and your mother. And then the Quran went on to say, وَجَعِلُوا الَّذِينَ تَبَعُوكَ فَوْقَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ, and I'm going to raise those who follow you, O Nabi Isa alayhi salam, raise them فَوْقَ الَّذِينَ, above and dominant over this other group, which has been saying these nasty things about you. Who are these? These are the people who rejected him as the Messiah, and who then subsequently became known as Jews. But the Quran speaks about an alliance of these Jews with some Christians. A strange thing. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have faith in Allah, la tattakhidhu al-yahuda wal-nasara awliya. Don't take the Jews and the Christians as your friends and allies. The Quran could not be speaking about all Christians. Absolutely not. Why? Because the Quran says about part of the Christian world, they will be the closest in love and affection for you. Yes? And the Quran says that they are people who Allah blessed with victory in Rome. So then if it is not all Christians and all Jews, which Christians and which Jews? Don't take them as your friends and allies. The answer is in the words which follow. Allah is not saying, don't take all Jews and don't take all Christians as your friends and allies. Only the schoolboy says that. What Allah is saying, بَعْدُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْدٍ, don't take such Jews and such Christians as your friends and allies who themselves are friends and allies of each other. So Allah has anticipated a Judeo-Christian alliance which will emerge in history. Those who rejected Nabi Isa alayhi salam, who now have Christian allies with them, and that is the Zionist alliance. And when Allah raises these people who follow Jesus to a position of dominance in the world, these are the ones who are the enemies. This is the Western world, this is modern Western civilization. This is NATO. And so now we have history ending, number one, with the true followers of Jesus, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, becoming the dominant military power in the world. Number two, that they will have a second victory. And when they have that second victory, we who follow Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, we will celebrate. When will that second victory come? It's plain to me that there is no other possible second victory than in the Great War. The Great War which is now around the corner. How soon will that Great War take place? Oh yes, I can answer you confidently. And my answer is soon. But then when you ask me how soon, I say, I don't know. But it's soon. Yes. They are lusting for that war. And I am anticipating that victory will come to Rome for the second time in that war. And when victory comes to Rome in this second victory, this will continue, they will continue as a dominant force in the world until the end of the world. I hope that this is clearly explained from the Quran. If I explain the Quran to you and you are confused, it's not my problem, it's yours. Right? Not my problem, it's yours. I am explaining the Quran and you are confused. You have the problem to solve, not me. And so we have a great war around the corner in which large numbers of people are going to die. The Imam just recited for Salatul Isha from Suratul Rahman, نُرْسَلُ عَلَيْكُمَا شُعَازٌ مِّن نَارٍ وَنُحَاسٌ فَلَا تَنْتَصِرَانِ. Allah says you're going to send against them a fire followed by smoke. Fire followed by smoke. That looks like nuclear warfare. Oh yes. And in nuclear warfare, lots of people are going to die. But it is a characteristic of those who have faith in their hearts that they're not afraid to die. It is a characteristic of those who have only peanuts in their hearts that they're afraid to die. So either we have faith in the heart or we have peanuts. If we have faith in the heart, we're not afraid to die. Allah chooses when we are to die. And when the time comes, we must be thankful to Allah for the life that He gave us. And those who have faith in their heart don't run from death. Sheikh, where can I go to be safe? Where? Tell me where. I get all of these emails. Sheikh, tell me where on the earth I can go to be safe. No, a Muslim is not afraid to die. And death is written for us. Wherever the time comes, we will die. What we want is when the angel comes for us, the angel should be pleased to see the kind of heart we have when we see the angel, and we see the angel on that day. So that great war is coming, and many, many, many people will die. That great war can be around the corner. After the great war takes place, the Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, that the next event to occur after the great war would be the conquest of Constantinople. He praised the army and he praised the commander. لَتَفْتَحَنَّ الْقُنْسْتَنْتِنِيَّةَ وَلَنِعْمَ الْأَمِيرُ آمِرُهَا وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشُ ذَلِكَ الْجَيْشُ. A Christian would ask, why would a Muslim army want to conquer a Christian city? Because Constantinople is a Christian city and Allah ordained that the Christians should conquer that city. He ordained it. To which we'll have to answer to say, well, the conquest of Constantinople prophesied by Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam will come after the Great War. The Great War has not taken place as yet. No. The Great War will take place soon. And only after that will the Muslim army conquer Constantinople. But Sultan Muhammad Fatih and the Ottoman army conquered Constantinople in 1453. And then subsequently Constantinople became a Muslim city with only a minimal Christian presence. And so, when the Muslim army conquers Constantinople after the Great War, it will not be conquering a Christian city. So then they say to me, okay, but we have another question for you, Sheikh. Why would a Muslim army want to conquer a Muslim city? You better have an answer, eh? And then we will answer and say to him that our Prophet praised the army and he praised the commander because you have praised that army and that commander. Those who supported the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople. And to this day you are still praising that commander, Sultan Muhammad Fatih, and still praising that Ottoman army that conquered Constantinople in 1453. Because you are doing that, he does this. Because this army will correct the wrong done by that army. That's why he praises this army and this commander, while you're praising that army and that commander. But what was the wrong done by that army that we will now correct after Rome is victorious for the second time in the Great War? In the Quran, Allah has prohibited us from fighting against an enemy who wants peace. The Quran commands you, if he wants peace, if he is inclining towards peace, you must reciprocate. You cannot wage war against an enemy who does not want to fight, who prefers peace. At the time when the Ottoman army conquered Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire had lost all its territories, all, and was confined now only to this small city. That's all it had. And in that city, the patriarch, the emperor, he had only about 7,000 to 9,000 people with him, that's all. And around him, surrounding Constantinople, was an Ottoman army with 200,000. So would these people want to commit aggression? No. They wanted peace. They were prepared to pay the Ottomans for a tribute for peace. The Ottoman commander, Sultan Muhammad Fatih, took the Quran and threw it away, and then waged war on this small group of Christians who fought valiantly, 7,000 of them against 200,000 of you. They fought valiantly, defending themselves and defending their faith until they died. They were crushed. This army which is coming is going to correct the wrong done by that army in waging war against a people who did not want war, wanted peace. This army is going to correct the wrong done by those who betrayed the Quran. These are bitter words for all those ignorant people out there who still fanatically support the Ottoman Empire in its war on Constantinople. But the conquest of Constantinople witnessed something else. In the Quran, Allah has Allah has commanded you to protect the houses of Allah. And He mentions the masjid, and He mentions the church, and He mentions the synagogue, and He mentions the temple by name. And He says, your duty is to protect these houses of God. And when the Sultan Muhammad Fatih conquered Constantinople, the first thing that he did was to take the Quran and throw it away, and take the greatest cathedral that the Christian world had, Hagia Sophia, which had remained their greatest cathedral for 1,000 years, and then shamefully and disgracefully and sinfully converted it into a masjid in violation of Allah's command in the Quran. Your books of law cannot supersede the Quran. Your bogus fiqh cannot override the Quran. The Quran is the supreme authority, not your fiqh. And so the defense of Sultan Muhammad Fatih has no legs on which to stand, but they remain fanatically supporting the decision to transform the cathedral into a masjid. And so now we say to them from Birmingham that this is the reason why our Prophet has said that the Muslim army will conquer Constantinople, so that this army can correct the wrong done by that one 600 years ago. And after we conquer Constantinople, the first thing that we will do is to return Hagia Sophia, the cathedral, to the Christians. And if they, with spite between their teeth, destroy the temple, destroy the masjid, the cathedral in the Great War that's coming, well, the land will still be there. And the Orthodox Christians can rebuild Hagia Sophia on that spot. And you will not be able to stop it. Two things will now have occurred. Number one, Rome is victorious in the Great War. Number two, Constantinople has been conquered and Hagia Sophia has been returned. And so now it should not be difficult to recognize that there's going to be greater friendship and alliance between the true followers of Nabi Isa alayhi salam and the true followers of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. This is something so strange to people that when you tell them this, they're confused. Because they thought that Islam is a religion which has come to wipe off all the Christians on the face of the earth. Slaughter them. Christians are an evil people, they should not be allowed to live. Cut off their heads. That's standard ISIS bogus theory. Yeah. And now we are being told that the stage will now be set at the end of history for this friendship and alliance to come. Now we can understand the verse of the Quran. Previously we were told, don't take the Jews and Christians as your friends and allies. And Allah went on to say, بَعْدُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْدٍ, meaning don't take such Jews and such Christians as your friends and allies, who are themselves friends and allies of each other. These are the greatest oppressors on the face of the earth, the Judeo-Christian Zionist alliance. But the Quran goes on to say, لَتَجِدَنَّ, you will most certainly find at the time when the Quran was revealed and in time to come, أَشَدَّ النَّاسِ عَدَاوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودِ, that those who will have the greatest hatred and enmity and hostility for the Muslims will be the Jews. This is in the Quran. You cannot accuse me of anti-Semitism when I'm talking about what is in the Quran. Why don't you come and say the Quran is wrong? Why are you afraid of the Quran? They will never do that. They're scared of the Quran. And at that time when the Jews become the greatest in hostility and hatred and enmity for the Muslims, just look at Gaza and you'll see. You see that hatred. The greatest concentration camp in the world, Gaza. You will find another people who are in shirk, who have the same waging war on Islam, which is the modern West. And this is now before us. We are living in that age now. We're war on Islam. Quran goes on to say, وَلَا تَجِدَنَّ, and you'll most certainly find, at the time when the Quran was revealed and in time to come, أقربهم مودة للذين آمنوا الذين قالوا إنا نصارى. That those who will be closest in love and affection for you at that time would be a people who say, we are Christians. Inna Nasara. The Quran does not say that the closest in love and affection for you would be a Christian people. No, it doesn't say that. It says the closest in love and affection for you would be a people who declare, we are Christians. Indicating that these are a people whose primary identity is their faith. They're not a secularized people. The Western world has secularized itself. And so you identify yourself first as British and then as Christian. Your religious faith is for your Sunday morning, your private life. But not these Christians. They are not secularized. So this cannot be the Christian West. They declare, we are Christians, proudly proclaiming their faith as their primary means of identity. So that's the West, the Eastern Christian world, the Orthodox world. And then the Quran goes on to explain why they are closest in love and affection for you. Not only because they proclaim we are Christians, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ مِنْهُمْ كِسِّسِينَ وَرُهْبَانَ وَلَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. This is because they have the institution of the priesthood still intact. The priest still occupies a very high status in their society. The Western world, the priest has less importance than Hollywood. And in these Christians, they still have the institution of the monasticism, the monastery, the monk. You come to the Western world and you see a lovely church, and now it's a pub. Yeah, it's a pub. A lovely church, and now it's an Islamic center. And they're selling all their churches and selling all their monasteries. They've forgotten the monastic way of life. But when you go to that part of the Christian world, you find that they still have their monasteries and they still cherish the monastic way of life. And this is why Kosovo is so close to their hearts. And these know it. The Western world, NATO knows that. So they have maneuvered events in the Balkans in such a way that they could corner the Christian of that side and cause him pain in his heart. That Kosovo, which is the monastic heart of the Balkans, has now become something cut away from them. وَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. The trademark of the Christian who truly follows Jesus alayhi salam is that he is not arrogant. He has humility and he has kindness, says the Quran. This is the basic characteristic of a Christian who follows Jesus. You cannot find these qualities in the West. Rather, you find arrogance, that they want to rule the world, and they want to transform all of mankind into carbon copies of themselves. That's arrogance. That you must be clean-shaven, because we shave our beards. And keeping the beard is unhygienic. Really? That your woman must be free. You have your woman wrapped up in all of these dummy cloth. Let your woman be free. Take off their clothes, like we do it on this side. And if our woman prefer to be covered. They're annoyed with that. You don't have to wash your hands anymore before eating. That's for backward people. They wash their hands before eating. Away with that! No more washing of hands before eating, because you're not supposed to touch the food. No, only natives, backward people, they touch the food with their hands. We are a civilized people. And a civilized people don't touch food with their hands. A civilized people use cutlery. And so when you have your curry fish and rice, and you wash your hands, and you start to eat your curry fish and rice, and my gosh, it's very enjoyable, curry fish and rice. Look at these barbarians, look at how they eat. We are a civilized people. We don't eat like that. And if you want to be civilized, you've got to become carbon copies of us. That's arrogance. You are the chosen people of the Lord God. You were born with a birthright of superiority over the rest of mankind. What arrogance! A Christian is not like that. A Christian who follows Jesus has humility, has kindness, is not arrogant, and most certainly wouldn't build a wall to keep the poor people out. These Christians are going to become closest in affection to us. It is not for us to try to bring them closer to us. No. Allah has said they will become closest in affection to us. So Dajjal's warriors who've been waging their bogus jihad in Syria could say what they want and do what they want. They can't stop it. These Christians are destined to become closest in affection to us. And I'm saying to you that the conquest of Constantinople, prophesied by Nabi Muhammad ﷺ, which is to come after the Great War, and which will lead to the Hagia Sophia being returned to the Orthodox Christian world, will lead the way, will pave the way for the inevitable friendship and alliance between these two people. And this friendship and alliance will now take the world to the end time. The Prophet said that after the conquest of Constantinople, the next event to occur would be Khuruj al-Dajjal. Dajjal will now appear in human form. When we see him, we see only a human being. That's all. We will not know that he is a jasad, because the evidence of him being a jasad is located inside of him. As soon as Dajjal declares himself in Jerusalem that Ana al-Masih, I am the Messiah, my opinion, and I can be wrong, my opinion will be that at that moment, Allah will call someone from the family of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to emerge. The family of the Prophet is known as Ahlul Bayt. Someone from the family of the Prophet ﷺ would emerge to become the ruler of the world of Islam. And he is Imam al-Mahdi. Imam al-Mahdi. When he comes, I only have 10 minutes left. When he emerges, he's going to be attacked by an army from the Quraysh. I'm cutting now, I'm cutting to try to fit it in 10 minutes. An army from the Quraysh will attack him, the Quraysh being the preeminent tribe of Arabia. And he will defeat that army. When that takes place, Saudi Arabia, which came out of a garbage bin, will return to the garbage bin. And there'll be many who will be very happy on that day. Yeah. And Adnan Khashoggi would smile on that day. Yeah. They cut his body into bits, and then they told a mountain of lies. Shame on them. Shame on them for lying. So Saudi Arabia will disappear. And the Khilafah state will be restored in Arabia. Once the Khilafah state is restored in Arabia, Imam al-Mahdi becomes the ruler of all Muslims. So Mr. Prime Minister, sorry, you got to step down. Mr. President, sorry, get lost. All these governments and all these ministers and so on and cabinets, bye-bye. Because now the Khilafah state is restored, so your secular Islamic republics and American republics and kingdoms and whatever you've had, get lost. Once the Khilafah state is restored in Mecca, and Imam al-Mahdi is now the ruler, the stage is now set. Dajjal will attack the Imam. And he chooses to attack the Imam when the Imam is in Damascus. It is the time of the morning prayer, Salatul Fajr. And the Imam is about to lead the prayer. When Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, the Prophet Jesus, with his hands resting on the wings of two angels. And as he comes down in the masjid, the Imam will recognize him and say, this is the son of Mary. And then he'll do the right thing. He will invite him to lead the prayer. That's the right thing. But Nabi Isa alayhi salam has been taught by Allah, taught the Quran. وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ وَالتَّوْرَاةِ وَالْإِنْجِيلِ. Allah says, and He will teach him the Quran and give him wisdom and teach him the Torah and teach him the Gospel. Nothing happens in the Quran by accident, excuse me. Nothing happens in the Quran by accident. He will teach him, Allah will teach him the Quran and teach him the Torah and the Gospel. But in between the Quran on this side and the Torah and the Gospel on that side, He gives him wisdom. Why? How do we make sense of this? What's the implication? The answer is that when Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, he will meet one ummah following the Quran and the Sharia which is in the Quran, and another ummah following him which have the Sharia of the Torah and the Gospel. And he is in between, he is the Prophet of Allah. So he has to know both sides. And he has to be able to manage with wisdom. And the first test that he got, very first, as soon as he arrives, first test, the Imam invites him to lead the Salat. If he makes a mistake, all fall down. He declines to lead the prayer and he avoids making a mistake. If he had led the prayer, he would have made a mistake. Why? If he led the Salat of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, his ummah, and our Amir prays behind him, he automatically becomes Amirul Mu'mineen for the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. But Allah didn't send him to us. No. Who did Allah send him to? Ya Bani Israel, Inni Rasulullahi ilaykum. I am the messenger of Allah to you. So it would have been a catastrophe if he had led the prayer. So he declines. He says, no, the people have appointed you as their Amir, you lead the prayer. And avoids a catastrophe. Our Shia brothers, and they are our brothers, make a mistake when they say that because he prays behind the Imam, this is proof that the Imam has a higher status than the Prophet. No, that's schoolboy stuff. So he declines to lead the prayer. But he prays now behind the Imam, following our Sharia of Salah. When he is with us, he follows our Sharia. But when he is with his Ummah, he prays in the direction of their Qibla, which is not our Qibla. That Qibla is still valid for them, it's in the Quran. When the Salat is over, he says, remove the barricade. So the masjid is still barricaded because there's still insurrection in Syria. So the present arms insurrection is not going to end. It's going to continue. And when the barricades are removed, he comes out and Dajjal is outside. And when Dajjal sees him, Dajjal melts like salt melts in water. That's the state of fright and terror. But Nabi Isa alayhi salam will pursue him and kill him. And then the Muslim army will liberate the Holy Land. And then Holy Israel will be restored. And that Holy Israel will be the ruling state in the world. Because our Prophet said that Nabi Isa alayhi salam will return to the world as Hakim, one who rules. And not downtown Chicago. One who rules, and he rules Hakimul Adil, with justice. And his followers who follow him will rule from that ruling state. And so there will be cooperation and collaboration and friendship and alliance between the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ led by Imam al-Mahdi and the Ummah of Nabi Isa ﷺ led by Nabi Isa ﷺ. It is with this alliance, I have not touched on Gog and Magog because time is up, it is this alliance which will take the world to the end of history. I have given you today, it's a long time since 12:30 this morning, it's now 8 o'clock at night. I've given you a tour of the subject of Dajjal, and believe you me, we have not completed the subject. There's still much more in this subject, but I believe that what you got today is sufficient for you to have a basic understanding of the subject. We can now pause for a question and answer session. This one does not have to stop at 8:30. You can tell the management that we spend the whole night. What role will the Pakistan army play in the last war? Which last war are you talking about? If you're talking about the Great War is not the last war, because you have the conquest of Constantinople after the Great War. But once Imam al-Mahdi liberates the Holy Arabia, there will be no Pakistan. There will be no Pakistan army, so I don't know what you're talking about. Because our leader will no longer be the president of the Islamic Republic and the prime minister of this and that and state. our leader would be Imam al-Mahdi. Okay? So there's no more Pakistan and Pakistan army at that time. Please touch on the topic of Gog and Magog. We don't have the time for that, yes. But we can organize another, maybe half-day seminar, not a whole day, on Gog and Magog, inshallah, in a couple of months' time from now. Dawood Pidcock, he was supposed to meet with me in Manchester, but he fell ill. Dawood Pidcock founded the Islamic Party of Britain around 1 year, which is around 1990, which is now dissolved. Should Muslims participate in politics, and if so, to what extent in Britain? I have on my website an essay, Can Muslims Vote in Elections of the Secular State? That essay directs you, guides you on participation in politics. You have to make a distinction between participation in politics and participation in electoral politics. All Muslims must be involved in politics, all, but not in electoral politics. Because if you enter into electoral politics, you are now going to be subject to the Constitution, and you'll have to pledge your loyalty to the Constitution, and that's goodbye to Allah. Which are my questions? All of these? Okay, all right. When, in your opinion, will Israel expand its borders and conquer Saudi Arabia's oil fields? I believe that Israel will make her move only after the Great War, not before the Great War. The Great War will result, maybe during the Great War, they will attack Pakistan to eliminate Pakistan from the nuclear club. Take the cover of the Great War to attack Pakistan during the Great War. And also the possibility of an attack on Egypt during the Great War or immediately after the Great War. Israel has to expand her territory from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates, because somebody wrote in the Torah that the Holy Land extends from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. That's false. But because it's there in the Torah, Dajjal has to do that. That is why they wanted Libya, so they can attack Egypt from Libya and from Israel, from both sides. Yeah. So expect these things during the Great War or immediately after the Great War. Moving forward, how do we recognize legitimate jihad? And likewise, what do we do if we arrive at the time that the conquest of Constantinople is to take place? The conquest of Constantinople will be led by an army led by a commander praised by the Prophet ﷺ. I have often suspected that a lot of that army is going to come from North Africa, because North Africa is the periphery of the Arab world. The heart of the Arab world is under greater control from Dajjal and from the Zionists. You have less freedom in Egypt. But Morocco and Tunisia and Algeria, I believe, from these part of the Arab world, that there'll be a lot of those who will join that army. But this is my own speculation, I can be wrong. What do you do when that time comes? And so you join that army to liberate Constantinople. I mean, who will you fight against? The army which is to conquer Constantinople, who will you fight against? Answer: you will fight those who do not want Hagia Sophia to be returned to the Christians. These are the ones you'll fight. You'll fight those who insist that the Ottoman army was right in conquering Constantinople. They did nothing wrong. These are the ones we'll fight, yeah. What is your view on Hezbollah? And who are Ya'juj and Ma'juj? We don't have time for Ya'juj and Ma'juj now. Whoever you are, whether you are Shia or you are Sunni, if you are resisting the oppressor, you are my brother. Don't come to me with your sectarian divide. If you are Shia and you're resisting the oppressor, you're my brother. And if you're a Sunni and you're turning in the direction of Washington as your Qibla, you can't be my brother. In what state will Mecca and Medina be? How will its people be post-Malhama? And is it a good place to seek refuge? The Prophet said that Dajjal will not be allowed to enter Mecca and Medina. He said that the Arabs are going to be attacked by a plague and they will die like sheep. But the plague will not enter Mecca and Medina. So at that time, after the Imam has liberated Arabia, Mecca and Medina will be a safer place to be. What is the most important things you can do to avoid the fitna of Dajjal? Number one, constantly recite the dua that Nabi Muhammad ﷺ gave us for protection from the fitna of Dajjal. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min azabil qabr. O Allah, I seek refuge with Thee from the punishment of the grave, from min azabin nar, and from the punishment of the fire. Wa na'udhu bika min fitnatil mahya wal mamat. And we seek refuge with Thee, O Allah, from the fitna, the tests and trials of life and of death, of living and of dying. Wa min fitnatil masihid dajjal. And we seek refuge with Thee from the fitna of Dajjal. You should recite this dua in every salat before you make the salams. In addition, you should recite the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf whenever you are confronted by Dajjal, meaning Dajjal's his attacks on you. And you will be safe from Dajjal. The first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf. Number 3, Dajjal is blind in the right eye, so he's internally blind. But you need nur in your heart. So you will not be like him. How will you get the nur? Nur means light. And as I told you, it's not sold in the stock market, it's not sold in the supermarket. So where are you going to get it? Answer: he said, recite Surah Al-Kahf on every day of Jum'ah, and you will get nur from the heavens to the earth, and that nur will stay with you until the next Jum'ah. Number 4, if you are to protect yourself from Dajjal, you got to study Dajjal. You can't protect yourself from something when you have no knowledge of it. If you wait on your Maulana and your Mufti and your Sheikh to teach you, you're going to wait a long, long time because he's not going to teach you. So you have to study it yourself. And although I'm writing 5 books on the subject, I assure you, when I'm finished with these 5 books, there'll still be a lot of material that others will have to write on. Okay? The best place to study Dajjal is of course in the Quran. And you cannot study the Quran if you are studying it through what they call a translation. Forget it. The Quran cannot be translated. So you have to learn to recite the Quran in Arabic. You have to recite the Quran from cover to cover, at least once a month. And that is the key to study the Quran. Without this key, forget it, you won't be able to study the Quran. Teach your children to recite the Quran in Arabic from cover to cover. So every day they're going to pick up the Quran and recite it. And try to complete the Quran once a month. The next step after that will be to seek to understand what you're reciting. And I have been astonished to find Arabs, yes, Arabs, Algerians, Moroccans, Tunisians, and they can't recite the Quran. Yes. And if you recite a verse of the Quran to them, they cannot understand. Because they're speaking a language which they call Arabic, which even Nabi Muhammad ﷺ will not be able to understand when he comes. They have disrespected a language created by Allah Himself, with their Algerian colloquial and their Moroccan colloquial and their this colloquial, and this one cannot understand that one and that one cannot understand that one. That's what they've done with the Arabic language. So you have to now learn the language sufficiently to be able to understand what you are reciting. That's the second stage. But there's a third stage after that. And that's the stage where you can fall in love. If you've never fallen in love with the Quran, my gosh, what have you lost? You will fall in love with the Quran on the day when you begin to study it. Reciting it is one thing. Reading it to understand it is a second thing. But studying the Quran is something quite different. You need the proper methodology to study the Quran. And they don't have that in the Darul Uloom. I have a book at the back which I've simplified it. Methodology for study of the Quran. Why is it? Why? That Allah is giving me these insights into the Quran that they don't get. Why? Because I am using a different methodology from them. If you study the Quran and you search in the Quran for what Allah can provide you as knowledge and guidance with which to protect yourself from Dajjal, then you can be successful. The Quran can be the means through which you can succeed. Is put in the prophesied Zulkarnain. Zulkarnain is not a person. Zulkarnain is someone who belongs to two ages, not two horns. The Quran is speaking of two ages. In one age, before the barrier was built, power rested on the foundations of faith in the region of the Black Sea. And that power was used in such a way that it punished the oppressor and it respected the faith of those who had faith and treated them nicely and rewarded them. And that same power was used to contain Gog and Magog behind the barrier. The Quran is saying that there's going to be a repetition. This will happen one more time. That power will once again rest on the foundations of faith. Zul Qarnayn, two qarns. And when that power rests on the foundations of faith, you will find it in the region of the Black Sea, Aynun Hamiyah. So when you see power returning to the region of the Black Sea, and that power is resting on the foundations of faith, this is the Qarnayn, the second of the two qarns. And this power now in the region of the Black Sea will again do what it did the first time. It will punish the oppressor. And it will treat those who have faith and whose conduct is righteous, treat them nicely and protect them and reward them. And it will checkmate Gog and Magog one more time. So I never asked who was Zulqarnain the first time. I never asked. They were saying it is Cyrus and it is this and that, but not me. I never attempted to identify any human being as Zulqarnain. So why should I do it the second time? Rather, I identified a people, an age, and I described that age to you. What is the rule of Russia to bring about the end of the state of Israel? I prefer to be silent. There are secrets you don't talk about. If Putin is Zulqarnain, we already answered that. It is my belief that Hillary Clinton will succeed Trump as president. At this point, Israel, will start to create a buffer zone by the name of Greater Israel. In order to achieve this, Israel may launch a nuclear missile at itself, creating a deception, which will be the start of the war, which will include dismantling Saudi Arabia. This is a possibility, yes, and there are other possibilities as well. But I hope Hillary doesn't become president. The more likely possibility is that they'll impeach Trump, and they want to impeach him because you cannot wage war on Russia with Trump as president. You need someone in the White House who belongs to your team. Hillary belongs to their team. The Vice President Pence belongs to their team. But Trump does not belong to their team. So they're going to do everything they can possibly do to impeach him, and then Pence will become the president. And if they don't succeed in impeaching him, the frightful possibility could be that he could win the next election as well. Many critics argue that the methodology of going to the Quran first and then to the Hadith would lead to the development of a new fiqh and ijtihad, which are going against the four scholars of thought, which is established. Which is the best response to this? I don't know, and I don't care for what will be the consequences for doing the right thing. It's not my business. The right thing is to recognize that the Quran and the Quran alone has absolute truth. And whoever differs with me, you have a problem, not me. I don't have a problem in recognizing that the Quran has absolute truth. Unquestionable truth. No one can question it. And then, following the methodology given by my teacher, you have to go to the totality of the Quran to find out what does the Quran say on a particular subject. You don't go to one verse standalone. No, that's wrong methodology. And then, having done your homework with the Quran, only now do you go to the Hadith. And when you find a Hadith which is in harmony with the Quran, you're safe. You accept it. But what would you do when you find a Hadith in Sahih Bukhari and in Sahih Muslim which says that our Prophet married a 6-year-old child? Did you hear that? Did you hear that? You're very quiet now, eh? Yes? Your Prophet married a 6-year-old child. Well, if this was something special for him that Allah gave to him and nobody else, then Allah must tell us that. This is only for him, not for you. But if Allah has not said that and he married a 6-year-old child, then marrying a 6-year-old child will become the sunnah. Allah has not said that this is for Muhammad alone and nobody else, alayhi salatu wasalam. He not said that. You have no authority to say that. Get lost. Who are you to say this is only for him? When Allah has not said that and He has not said that. So marrying a 6-year-old child is now sunnah. How many people have followed that sunnah in 1400 years? Can you give me even one name? All I'm asking for is one. One. Huh? Is there anyone today who will stand up and declare, yes, I am prepared to marry a 6-year-old child? Huh? Is there anyone who is prepared to stand up and say, yes, it is the correct thing, you are permitted to marry a 6-year-old child? I can't find even one voice. Nobody is prepared to do it. What a shame. You say it is a sunnah, and you abandon him like this? When will you learn to think? If a hadith is in conflict with the Quran, you reject it. And this is in conflict with the Quran. Yes, I can show you the proof from the Quran. You are prohibited from marrying a child. So what do you do when you find a hadith in conflict with the Quran? There are several, I can give you more. Proper methodology is to use the Quran to judge the hadith. Proper methodology is to use the Quran to judge the hadith. And if you find even the appearance of a conflict between the book of Allah and the hadith, you stay with the Quran. And then there are those hadiths which are neither in harmony nor in conflict. So what do you do with them? Answer, you accept them. But you do not use these hadiths to build the foundation of knowledge. No. You can't build it on that foundation. And you certainly do not use these hadiths to divide the Muslims into this sectarian movement and that sectarian movement, and you buy all the boxing gloves you can buy for your boxing match. So it is not my problem if I use the proper methodology. It is your problem if you reject this methodology. There is a hadith that Nabi Isa alayhi salam will return to destroy the cross and kill the pig and stop jizya one at a time as soon as Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns. Every belief that a Christian has which is in conflict with the Quran will now be corrected. But we have to approach the subject with wisdom. I have been approaching this subject with wisdom with Russia and with the Balkans. I went to the State University of Moscow and I lectured and I was received with respect. You think that's possible in Washington? Or in Oxford and Cambridge? But it happened in Russia, and this is the most important university in the whole of Russia, State University of Moscow. And I went to the University of Belgrade twice and I lectured in the biggest auditorium. My wife was there, she told me, I didn't see it myself, she said they were crying. They were crying in the auditorium, okay? If you approach the Christian world in a respectful way, not with boxing gloves, and you introduce the Quran to them, then these same Christians tomorrow can accept that the Quran is indeed the word of God, and that Muhammad ﷺ is indeed a true prophet of the one God, and still remain a Christian. Yes, he says, I don't want to join your ummah. I prefer to remain in my ummah and continue to follow Jesus. And I have no problem with that. Except for these schoolboys who'd be coming, jumping up, take the shahada, take the shahada, take the shahada. Schoolboys. May Allah protect me from them. And so yes, He will correct the mistakes that they have. But that does not mean that it will invalidate his ummah. And all the Christians will have to join the ummah of Muhammad ﷺ. That's nonsense. Okay? And kill the pigs and kill the swine. I guess those will be the people who Allah cursed. Kunu kiladatan qasin, be apes and swine, because of his anger with them, okay? The Shia and the Sunni positions on Imam al-Mahdi are different. I delivered 2 lectures in Manchester at the Shia Islamic Center. And the head of the Shia Islamic Center turned out to be someone I knew. I met him in Qom. And when the Manchester Central Masjid cancelled my lecture, he said, come to my center. So I gave 2 lectures at the Shia Islamic Center in Manchester, and they received me with affection and respect. And the lectures were held, alhamdulillah. And even when I explained the position of Imam al-Mahdi different from theirs, it didn't cause a problem. I didn't cut any corners. I explained that when the Imam invites Nabi Isa alayhi salam to lead the prayer, he'd done the right thing. And if Nabi Isa alayhi salam had accepted the invitation, he would have done the wrong thing, because Allah has not sent him to us. But not because the Imam that led the prayer with Nabi Isa alayhi salam followed him, that does not imply that Imam al-Mahdi has a higher status than Nabi Isa alayhi salam. That's schoolboy stuff. Now, the Imam is not going to rule the world. No. It is Nabi Isa alayhi salam who will rule the world. And those who are following him would not be us. We will follow the Imam. So it is his followers who will rule the world with him from Jerusalem. And we will have the Imam in Mecca who will be our leader. This is contrary from Shia belief. So I was able to present these views in a Shia Islamic Center, and yet it did not cause any conflict or boxing match between us. There are other matters which separate us from the Shia, but we don't have the time to take them up now. I can answer maybe another 1 or 2 before my voice goes. If the Great War is imminent and Rome will be victorious, how does Israel rule for a day like a week when Rome becomes the dominant power? Yes, smart question. Smart question, yes. This is the part of the subject I prefer not to talk about. You don't reveal all your secrets. The relationship between Russia and Israel is a subject I will not talk about. Is it haram to hide one's personal wealth or income from the authorities in the event that a country is oppressing? If a government or a power is oppressing you, then the moral law is the highest law. Oh my, this one I can't answer about Neanderthals. It's beyond me. Who are the true followers of Christians? Who are you referring to? Who would be the dominant people in the world? They would be the closest in love and affection for yours. And what do you mean by their Qibla? The Qibla in the Torah is Jerusalem. And that was our Qibla as well, until Allah changed the law and gave us a new Qibla while they still have their old Qibla. And Allah says, you must follow your Qibla and they must follow their Qibla. This is in the Quran. So that Qibla still has validity. And this one has validity, but Washington is not a Qibla. Okay. It is not for me to identify who are the Christians who will be recognized by Allah and favored with victory. It is He who will decide who are those Christians. And all you have to do is open your eyes and watch and you will see. And fortunately, I have my eyes open. And I'm already seeing. And what you can also see. Yes. I am seeing that Russia is transforming itself before our eyes. Yes. And Russia has become the dominant military power in the world already in my lifetime. And Russia has set a standard, an ethical standard, high, far superior than all the Muslim countries, where they chop up people and they burn their bodies and then tell a mountain of lies about them. In Russia, the law prohibits a man marrying another man and getting a marriage certificate. Not in our part of the world, they said, not in 1,000 years. And there are many other things you are seeing in Russia that you don't see even in the Muslim world. Russia has banned genetically modified food. No GM food in Russia. Do you know any Muslim country? Before you start comparing yourself with Russia and putting on the mantle of superiority. Do you know any Muslim country which has banned GM food? Huh? Russia has banned genetically modified food. So it's not for us to identify them. You will see when Allah raises them. And they win the war which is coming. And then they become the dominant force in the world. And those of you who are discomforted at that time, too bad for you, because I will be celebrating. A question concerning to the law of apostasy. I am not a scholar of law. But there's nothing in the Quran which says to kill a Muslim if he becomes a Christian. If there is in the Quran, show it to me. This is not in the Quran, this is in the schools of law. And I believe it is comparable to treason. That in the same way that the state executes people who commit treason. Because when you commit treason, you are endangering the survival of the state. That's why they execute you. So if the state is at war, and you choose to change your religion during that time in order to jeopardize the state itself, you deserve to be executed. You're not being executed because you're changing your religion. You're executed because you're jeopardizing the security of the state. This appears to me, to my understanding of that law of apostasy. Okay? But there's nothing in the Quran which says kill a Muslim if he becomes a Christian, yeah? Is there an alliance or collaboration between Dajjal and Shaitan? I said to you in Surah Sad that Sulaiman alayhi salam has the jinn working for him by divine command. And these are jinn who are shayateen. If they disobey Sulaiman, Allah will punish them. When Sulaiman died, alayhi salam, they did not know he was dead. And they kept on working. Because they saw him sitting on his throne, holding on to the staff. But no, it was not Sulaiman, it was the Jasad. It was Dajjal. So yes, most certainly, Dajjal has the shayateen working for him full time without overtime pay. Yes. Up to this moment that I am speaking, the shayateen are still working for him. Not knowing that they're working for Dajjal, they believe they're working for Sulaiman. But when Dabbatul Ard consume the staff, then they will be able to see this is not Sulaiman, this is someone else. And then they stop working for him, and that's goodbye to Israel. So yes, the answer is there are shayateen working for Dajjal. My voice is going now. I can only answer one more. How does Dajjal influence the dunya with his power if he has not taken human form and not shown himself before his day like a year? 3 questions in one. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق. Where is the shar? Say, I seek refuge with Allah, the Lord of the Dawn, from the evil which He has created. That's Dajjal. وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدَ. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَالِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَٰهِ النَّاسِ مِن شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ. In these 2 surahs of the Quran, Allah gives us an insight into Dajjal's methodology. He whispers into your heart. He seeks to corrupt you. And in the process of corrupting you, he destroys your spiritual heart. And you become like cattle. They have eyes and yet cannot see. You become just as like himself. And when I look around in the world today, I find so many people have eyes and yet cannot see. Thank Allah for you, that you've traveled from far and wide to come here. But there are people outside the door here, right here in Birmingham, who don't care to be nuts for this. Yes. This is what Dajjal has done with them. The overwhelming majority don't care for what we're teaching here. They don't care. You are different. You've come from far and wide because you have a hunger for this knowledge. But you are the minority. Dajjal has already brainwashed the majority, and they just eat the biryani and go home and sleep. Thank you very much for being so patient with me, and I thank Allah that my voice has survived. And I have to travel, inshallah, on the 23rd back to the Caribbean, and then I have to have surgery on my knee inshallah, and then 6 weeks of recuperation. So maybe in a few months from now, maybe in the summer, I'll be able to return. But maybe we can do another session right here in Birmingham, inshallah.